April 19th, 1995 was when Timothy McVeigh drove up to the Murrah building and blew up the building, killing 168 people. My grandchildren, Chase and Colton, lived in my home with me. My daughter was a young divorced mother. In our home, everything evolved around those little boys. They were the light of our lives. The morning of the bombing started out much like any other morning. I started every morning with a song, so I began, "Good morning to you, good morning to you." We're all in our places with sunshiny faces. Little boys began to giggle, and we all began to work on them, get them ready for school, and then we headed off to the daycare where we dropped them off. Edie and I worked just a couple of blocks from the building, and when the bomb went off, we ran down there, and it was as though we had entered the twilight zone. There were big sheets of glass falling all around us, and I looked up the street and I saw the smoke coming from the Murrah building, and I said, "Edie, the babies." And then we heard boom, 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 and we took off running. And when we got around to the north side, it was the cars in the parking lot blowing up. We turned and looked at the building, and where the daycare once was nothing left but a pancake pile of rubble. My daughter fell to her knees, weeping, "My babies, my babies." The pain of the bombing was just devastating, because not only was I suffering over the loss of my only grandsons, I could not bear to watch my daughter suffer. It was the darkest time of my life. I found it hard to pray. How could the good and loving God that I had always loved and served, how would he let this happen to me? It was the first time in my life that I ever wanted to kill myself. I just didn't want to live in a world without my grandchildren and in such pain. I finally came to a point where, you know, God, I don't know why this happened, but I don't know how I'm going to get through this without you. If you're out there, Lord, and you're real, you're going to have to help me. Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh were the two men being prosecuted for the Oklahoma City bombing. I began searching for the truth. But in the end, the truth I discovered was not the one I was looking for. It was Timothy McVeigh that blew up the building, not God. What brought me peace after that was in knowing that God did not take my grandchildren. He simply received them when they came. Meeting Terry Nichols' mother was the very first little baby step I had toward learning to forgive. I began to sit with her in the courtroom. I began to eat lunch with her. It wasn't long before Terry Nichols, the bomber, became my friend Joyce's son. When the trials were over, it was several months later, I received a letter from Terry Nichols thanking me for befriending his family. I decided, I don't know what his motivation is to write me, but I know what my motivation is. And perhaps if I befriended him, he would answer some of my unanswered questions about the bombing. And we began to write. Letters turned into phone calls, and the phone calls eventually turned into visits. He told me in his cell, the only thing in there was a Bible, and that he read it cover to cover. Then he got a hold of a radio, and he heard a radio preacher tell him that if he would invite Jesus into his heart, that Jesus would forgive him of all of his sins and cleanse him from all unrighteousness. My belief is that the Lord did do a work in his life and that his life has been changed. Terry really grew to love me and respect me as his sister in the Lord, and he was concerned about his family. Those were the forgotten victims of this crime. The whole world reached out to the people that lost loved ones, but those families were destroyed as well. I made it a point to meet every family member that I could. I had McVeigh's sister Jennifer to my home for a meal. I went to New York, where I met with Timothy McVeigh's father. I had Terry Nichols' ex-wife and his son to my home. Josh, Terry Nichols' son, told me how he had dropped out of school. The kids had nicknamed him Bomber. He would randomly get beat up. My heart went out for this boy. Josh asked me to take him to the Oklahoma City Memorial, and I knew when I stood in front of the chairs 60 and 61 that represented the lives of my little grandsons with the Oklahoma City bomber's son. that God had done a great work in my life and I had come a long way. I can remember telling Terry Nichols on the phone one day, I said, Terry, I don't know what your part was in the bombing, but I want you to know that I've forgiven you. Did I forgive Terry Nichols? Absolutely. Do I think Terry Nichols should be punished? Absolutely. Forgiveness and punishment are two different things. The weight and the burden of carrying around the hate and the unforgiveness and the bitterness is devastating. To remain angry and bitter is like drinking poison and expecting the enemy to die. And learning to forgive brought me a peace, it brought me joy, and now today I have a smile on my face and a song in my heart. Today I've learned that forgiveness is the greatest gift you can give yourself.
It is the greatest gift you can give yourself, but boy, it's hard to get there from where you are when someone has misused you, hurt you, taken something precious from you. You know, initially we all feel just angry and even depression in those places and discouragement. But God is calling us to a different place. And, you know, He's not calling us to a place of forgiveness because it's the spiritually right thing to do. He's calling us to it because He wants us to be free. I mean, you heard Kathy talk about the weightiness of anger and bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness. It weighs us down. It changes the way we see the world. It changes the way we feel about ourselves. It robs us of the joy of the gift of life. You know, the thing about it that I hear in Kathy's story is she began to pursue it. You know, it's like she knew that all those things she was feeling initially were real, but she didn't want to drown in that, and you can. So I want to say to you today, if someone has hurt you, if someone has maligned your name, taken something precious from you, if you're feeling hurt and broken and angry and frustrated, there's an opportunity for you to be free. You know, the hard part about forgiveness is it feels so not right under the circumstances. You know, you feel like somebody needs to pay. But one of the things God also says in His word is, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And when we're willing to trust His word to set our hurt and our pain, our loved ones, if that's what we've lost, on the altar before Him, and say what Kathy said, God, teach me your ways. You know, Scripture says His ways are different than our ways. It says they're higher than our ways. But it's even more than that. It's God's planned road to freedom for you and for me. Care enough about yourself to take God up on that offer. To today come to Him and say, God, I've been hanging on to this. It has defined who I am, and not in a good way. It has robbed me of peace of mind, sleep at night, any kind of faith that I've had. I'm coming to you because I want to get out of this pit. Will you reach down and lift me out of the pit and set my feet on the rock of Jesus Christ, and then walk me through the process of forgiveness? I want to be free. I can tell you a sincere prayer like that will change your life. Try it. Try Him. He's got an answer for you.
Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.